We
All
love
right. I'm going to get things started just with some general housekeeping stuff. Um, we had a phenomenal time with Brandy Chastain Saturday. What's cool is tomorrow is the anniversary of her scoring the winning goal 25 years ago for the U.S. to win the World Cup. And here we had a two-time Olympic gold medalist, two-time World Cup champ, soccer Hall of Famer, literally making us homemade guacamole at a tailgate. So that was unbelievably fun. Up next for us is the U.S. Open. So we're going on August 30th. We've got day passes. So if people want to join us for the U.S. Open, it's going to be great. Our retreat, this is very important. So we have a special announcement that no one knows about. So everyone knows that our retreat, which Ron was at our retreat last year, we feature a whole bunch of legends, one of which is on the call today, Robert Hamilton Owens. So we've got five legends: Robert Hamilton Owens, Mace Curran, who's the second woman to ever fly lead solo for the Thunderbirds, Joe Jacoby, Olympic gold medalist, Megan Riley from Shark Tank, and Jackie Summers, who has the most awarded liqueur in the world. The big news is we just figured out, or we, when I say we, I mean Kathy, figured out a way that if people want to go to the retreat, you can pay over the course of 12 months, 0% financing. So you do not have to pay before the retreat. You've got an entire year. We do not have a ton of spots left. So if you're interested in the retreat and want to make it very affordable because it can be spread out over the course of a year with no finance charges, let Kathy or I know and we can walk you through how that works. And last, next Tuesday, we have Michael Sheldrick. Michael is the founder of Global Citizen, which is an incredible organization that he's built, just doing unbelievable things in the world. So, really excited for that. But today we're mixing it up a little bit. So we are very, very fortunate to have one of our longtime members, Ron Rosansky. Ron introduced me to Minda, oh, I don't know, I think several years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, I love her to death. And I also love Ron, but they have a very special relationship. So Ron's a longtime member. And if you say, well, maybe you haven't seen a lot of Ron. He was at our retreat, but he's very busy running two very successful tech companies in New York City. So he's got a full plate. So Ron is going to conduct the interview portion today. So for those of you who are not familiar with a Legend series, the way that it works is Ron will do kind of like a fireside chat with Minda for about 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for live Q&A. You do not have to put what your question is in the chat. Just say, I've got a question for Minda, and then I'll tee you up and you can ask Minda whatever question you have. So I'm going to let Ron introduce Minda to all of you guys, and then Kathy's going to get us started, and then we're ready to roll. So Ron, I'm turning it over to you. I'm not used to this. I love it.
Thank you. It's good to see some friends from the retreat. Andrew, Tom, great to see you, Robert. Great to see some new faces. So thank you, Scott. It is really an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you and Minda Dentler. And very importantly, and please take note, Minda would like all of us to take one single thing away from this conversation. So that is the objective. But before we get started, and this does not include those of you who are driving, Scott, I'd like all of you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, and I'm going to take you on a short journey, and I'll let you know when to open your eyes. So let's close our eyes, a few deep breaths, and then I'll take you on that journey. You are on the starting line of the Super Bowl of Ironman distance triathlons, the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. In a few seconds, you'll start a 2.4-mile ocean swim, followed by a 112-mile cycle and a 26.2-mile marathon run with 2,000 other athletes. Except, unlike them, you don't have the use of your legs. You hear the gun go off, and using just your arms, you pull yourself 2.4 miles through the ocean water. You make the 2-hour and 20-minute cutoff time. You get on your hand cycle for a 112-mile ride on the Queens Kahumanu Highway with a road surface of over 100 degrees. And after 60 miles and training for over a year, you realize you won't make the cutoff. You failed. You're embarrassed that you even tried to finish the Kona Ironman. You're crushed. You can open your eyes. Minda started training again, and the following year became the first female wheelchair athlete in history to complete the Kona Ironman World Championships. The next year, Minda had a daughter. She went on to attempt Kona 2 more times after having successfully completed it and failed both times in the following years. Minda then successfully completed 3 more Ironman distance triathlons, 19 70.3-mile half-distance triathlons on 6 continents. She was an ESPY Award nominee, writer for Time Magazine, the Huffington Post, a TED speaker, a corporate speaker. She recently finished her first children's book in March, which I highly recommend you go and purchase immediately on Amazon for your kids, regardless of how old they are. And my wife and I appreciated reading it too. I think it's great for adults. And the name of that book is The Girl Who Figured It Out. And Minda certainly did. So without further ado, I would love all of us to welcome the ultimate outlier, Minda Dentler.
Woo!
Kathy,
Kathy, hit it.
Yeah.
Welcome, Minda.
Thank you.
We have an intro.
Love it. Love it. So Minda,
Wonderful.
we were catching up yesterday, and one of the things that you had said, and Minda's first attempt was in 2012. Her successful attempt was the following year in 2013. And, you know, I have done some of these, a lot fewer than you races, and the training, the mindset is unbelievable that you have to have. And the thought of you doing everything you did is mind-boggling to me. And you had mentioned that it's even hard for you to think back and that you achieved that goal. So take everybody back on kind of how it all started. How'd you get to the States? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, sure. Um, I'm so excited to be with you all today. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah, so like Ron mentioned, I was a disabled orphan in India and I became a world champion and I really have quite the story, right? I failed the Ironman in 2012 and I finished it in 2013. But I really wanted to talk to you about my journey and how I did it. So my story really begins way back. I was born in Bombay, India in 1978. I contracted polio as a baby, and as a result, my legs are paralyzed from the hips down. And my birth mother, she realized that she couldn't take care of me, and so she decided to leave me at an orphanage, really hoping that I would have a better life. And 3 years later, I was adopted by an American family and I moved to Spokane, Washington. And over the next few years, I underwent a series of surgeries on my hips and my legs and my back that allowed me to walk with leg braces and crutches. And, you know, looking back, I had a normal childhood like many of you. I grew up in a busy household with parents. I had two brothers and a sister. But even though I had a disability, my parents really had the same expectations of me as they did my siblings. Like I really laugh about it now, but it didn't matter that our house was full of stairs, right? Can you imagine adopting a disabled baby and knowing that your house has like stairs everywhere? But it didn't matter. I was crouching up and down them. I had to tackle the same chores. Like I had to drag my vacuum cleaner around up and down the stairs, and of course excel in school like my siblings. But growing up with a disability wasn't easy, right? You know, I often felt self-conscious, like I had to wear a back brace and leg braces, and many times kids would make fun of me on the playground, and adults would often talk over me, thinking that I wasn't a person like them. And instead of feeling sorry for myself, I decided to take action. I was determined to prove that I was more than my disability. And part of that is really because of my parents. You know, my parents instilled in me this belief that I could do anything. My dad would encourage me and say, "You can do a minute, just figure it out." And this is actually the title of my book, by the way. And figure it out I did. From a young age, I learned how to walk with leg braces and crutches. I learned to climb the stairs so I could ride the same school bus with my sister. And I learned to drive. And eventually I attended college. I backpacked through Europe all by myself. I landed a job in New York City and then got married.
So how did you get into this whole triathlon thing?
Yeah, so I wasn't like, I didn't discover sports until I was 28 years old. Like I was always on the sidelines cheering my siblings on in their races. But when I was in New York City, I was introduced to sports and everything changed. Like I learned how to hand cycle. I don't know if you have a few New Yorkers in the group, but I trained with Achilles International in Central Park. And eventually I got into the world of triathlons. And I remember when I began training for my first triathlon, many people doubted me. And even my own mom thought I was crazy. And that just fueled my fire. And I thought to myself, I'm going to show you. And before I knew it, I was knee deep into triathlon. And when I think about the Ironman, my journey to Ironman was like this 5-year marathon of training and racing all over the world. Like Ron sort of mentioned it. I actually had to count the races last night. But it all led up to my first attempt at the Ironman World Championship in Kona, Hawaii. And, you know, most people envision Hawaii as this place, like this paradise of beautiful beaches and relaxation. But for me, Kona really evokes memories of like heat, exhaustion, and hard work. And, you know, I was really inspired to take on this Kona challenge because I learned that no female wheelchair athlete had ever completed the race because of these strict, seemingly impossible cutoff times. And so that is sort of how I got into sports and my inspiration towards the Ironman.
So, I'll give away the takeaway, which is to find a goal, whatever it is, and stick with it. And I hope it's fair to say that there probably all of us have had goals that we've attempted to achieve and have not been successful and given up. And certainly, I know that there are a lot of people who have done physical feats like this, and just to make the attempt was a success. So what was it that got you to go back after, and I think it was 2 hours that you were off the time of the cycle?
Mm-hmm.
So what about that experience? What about after that led you to believe that you could go back a year later, when no female has ever done this before, and finish the Kona Ironman?
Yeah, I mean, it was really devastating to have spent, almost a year of training, getting to the race. Like, it felt like everything fell apart even at the start. Like, my goggles fell off in the swim. I lost my rhythm. I got on my bike, and by mile 60, like, I was toast. And I got pulled off the course because I was too slow. I was almost 2 hours off that time limit. And I was devastated. I failed, I cried, and I was crushed. And, I was really embarrassed because I had told all these people that I was going to do it, but I didn't. And I remember having a conversation with my best friend afterwards, and we started processing my experience about what I sort of deem as the Kona failure. And she helped me remember what is true about failure. It can really discourage us, but it also has that power to motivate us and to push us forward. And so it really got me thinking about trying again. And fast forward a few months later, I was sitting in the car with my husband, Sean. We were on our way to grandma's, right, for Christmas. And we had this conversation, and he asked me, like, why do you want to go after Kona again? And at that point, like, going after Kona wasn't really about, I don't know, winning or becoming an Ironman world champion or becoming the first. I just wanted to get it done and for myself. And honestly, I just didn't want to regret not trying again. And so in many ways, that sort of became my purpose for going after the race again.
So you get it done, you make history, and tell us what happened in between.
Like, tell you about the race or what happened?
No. Tell us what happened after you won, what you've been up to, some of the things that you've done.
Yeah. So, so the day after the Ironman is the award ceremony. And, like, I roll up on the stage, I accept my award, and they give you like this yellow jacket, sort of like the Tour de France, being like the hand cycle winner. And, as I rolled off the stage, I was greeted by Kirsty Wellington, and she is a 4-time Ironman world champion. She is a legend in the triathlon sport. And she told me, Minda, you now have a platform. Go and use it. And I spent the entire next year trying to figure out, like, what she meant. And I started being asked to share my experience of completing the Ironman and, as a disabled athlete. And then I slowly realized that, by sharing my experiences, not only can I inspire other people to take on big goals in their life, but I can also use it as a platform to raise awareness for something bigger than myself. And for me, I was impacted by polio, which is a disease that paralyzed me, right? And there's a real potential that we could end polio for good. And so I'm able to use my voice to help raise awareness for this disease and also the importance of vaccination. So it's sort of unfolded in a way that I would have never expected. I'm actually quite the introvert, and being asked to speak and share my experiences, I began to realize that this is one way or this is part of my purpose and how I can make an impact on the world. And so from then, like Ron mentioned, I had a baby. My daughter is 9 now, and I'm still
Won
working
her
full
first
time.
triathlon.
Oh, yes, it was really cool. My daughter did a triathlon. That was like, I was super proud. And I'm still doing advocacy. I wrote this book, and I've been really enjoying the opportunity to share my story with a wider audience.
Tell us about writing the book.
So I started writing during the pandemic in 2020. My daughter was 5, and you know, when I was growing up, I didn't see books that had characters with disabilities. And, you know, when I was looking for books for my daughter, I noticed that same gap. And so I decided to write a book to not only share, you know, my story, but some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. And it's sort of the book that I wish I had as a child. It really shows that, you know, having a disability or even having differences really don't define our potential. And I think the reality is that the book is for anyone who enjoys stories of triumph over adversity. It's like my true story of, you know, being able to take action, embracing challenges, working hard, having that self-belief and never giving up. And these are universal lessons that we can all learn from. And this is something that I wanted to share with my daughter and her peers. But these are lessons that everybody can apply. And the whole process of writing the book was actually quite unnerving, because I don't know. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into. I did a lot of research. I bought a number of books that were like autobiographical in nature. And it was just really exciting to be able to put pen to paper the story that I had been telling, you know, to corporate audiences. But now I could share my story in a way that my daughter could get it.
That is awesome. So before I hand it back to Scott and Kathy for questions from the group, what message or lessons would you like to leave us with?
You know, I've got loads of lessons, you know, in telling the story of my Iron Man. But I think the one thought that I would want to leave with everyone is that, you know, like, well, I believe that I'm a person of action. Like, I refuse to be limited by my circumstances. And this is sort of what I want for all of you. Ron sort of mentioned this, like, you know, I've faced more failures. It's, you know, I only talk about the 2 times that I've been to Kona, but I've actually been 4 times, and I only finished it once. And if I were to tell you about the last time, like, look, it was 2016. I became a mom. My daughter was 2, and I wanted to be like a super mom, and I wanted to go after Kona again. Like, I trained hard. I was super fit. I was actually more fit in 2016 than I was in 13. But you know, I failed again. I had to stop at mile 60 on the bike. I wasn't going to make the time limit. And I got hit by strong winds and high heat. I was spent. I was devastated. And, you know, my friends and family were there. And the only one that wasn't sad was my 2-year-old daughter, Maya. She gave me a big hug. She shared her shaved ice with me. And, you know, at no point did my daughter think my mom has failed. She might have known that I didn't achieve the goal, but she knew that I certainly tried. And that's really the most important part. So, you know, we're not all going to win the race or even finish it, but the fact that we give it a shot is what counts. And so I want to leave you all with this thought of just pick a goal, start. You may struggle, you may fail along the way, but it's worth it. And, you know, something that I like to say is, like, what is your Ironman? Like, think about, what is that big goal that you want to chase, and what's standing in the way of achieving your goal?
Thank you, Minda. Scott, Kathy?
Unbelievable. Minda, you are a total legend.
Thanks.
So inspiring. And I probably have 20 questions for you, but I'm gonna let our members ask some questions. So we're gonna go to Florida first, and we're gonna go to Paul, who's got a question for you.
Oh, Minda, I want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been so incredible. Actually was born and raised in Hawaii, and I had a neighbor who grew up with polio, so I'm kind of familiar. I have kind of a question for you. So I started writing my book recently, and I found that one of the biggest things that hit me from a breakthrough perspective is I had to really go through a lot of like little moments, because I think a lot of times people hear about the massive breakthroughs and big things that happen. I'm curious for you, what has been like probably the most memorable little moment of your life that you don't really talk about as much?
Little moment in my life. Um, I think, I mean, when I wrote this book, it was like, taking an inventory of all these little experiences that really like reflected like who I wanted to be in the book, right? Like I wanted to share these lessons that I've learned along the way. And I think it was sort of like I had to do a deep dive in my childhood, right? Like I was very uncomfortable as a disabled like child. I really had to dig into the why behind it. Like I was really self-conscious, and the way I reacted to that was, trying to prove to everyone that I was more than my disability. And in a way, like I became like over involved. I wanted to do everything except sports because I thought I couldn't do sports. In order to show people that I'm not what I supposedly look like. And so just going through this like self-discovery and realizing like, hey, that is part of my story. And the lesson that I wanted to share with kids and the world is that, it doesn't matter the challenges that you go through. It's like, we all have something, right? That hinders us or it makes life more difficult, right? But in the book, I talk about little things like learning how to walk, like being able to like climb stairs so I could ride the school bus with my sister. And, learning these sports, like, I faced struggles, I made mistakes, and I experienced failure. But I wanted to show like this was a pattern that occurred over my life. But these are lessons that can be taken, right? Like challenges are a normal part of life. And I have this phrase that I use. It's off of a mantra that I have, where I said afterwards, I was stronger, I was smarter, I was more confident, really showing that, once you face a challenge, you absorb it, you learn from it, you make mistakes, and you move on. And this is sort of the attitude that I wanted to share and that I have like just started, as a little child. And so I don't really have like one single memory in writing this book. It's more about like unearthing those difficult moments as a child with a disability.
Wow, powerful. Thank you so much. I'm all about, impossible equals impossible. And I guess I'm buying your book. So thank you.
Thank you.
I love your your no victim mindset. It's just unbelievable because we live in a world where, people can very easily slip into becoming a victim. And you certainly, had many, many, many reasons to slip into that. But the fact that you didn't just shows how strong you are. We are going next. We're going over the pond to London. Isabel, you're up.
Thank you so much, Scott. Hi, Minda. A great honor to meet you. What an incredible story. And I want to connect you with Hannah Stodell over here. Have you heard of Hannah? She's a British Paralympic sailor. I'm going to connect the two of you. She was born without an arm below the right elbow, and she is going to be the first disabled female to complete the Vendée Globe in 2028. So I want to hook you two up because
Oh, that's awesome. I love
you're
that.
both as incredible as each other. Thank you for everything you've shared. I want to ask you one thing, which is there any one consistent practice that you've tapped into throughout your time, throughout your journey, in all the very varied ways that it has gone, that you could share with us, please?
All throughout. I think I would say just practicing gratitude. I think I've had loads of people who have supported me in my journey, you know, from being a child to, you know, getting my first job, to discovering sports, to becoming an Ironman, being on stages and all of that. But it's making sure that, you know, I stay grounded and I tell people that I appreciate them and whatever part they have played in part of my journey. And one thing that was really exciting this past year is, you know, when my book launched, I sent my book to a number of people who have been a part of my journey. And I was able to write a note to everybody, just basically like telling them like how much they meant to me or how much like their effort really helped me. And I think it's really important to have that mindset or have that practice of gratitude. I tried to do that even to this day, right? Like it's like the book was a great excuse to be able to share that, but just saying thank you for everything, little thing. I think it's a good practice, and it actually makes me happier inside when I'm able to do that.
Thank you so much.
We're going to Boston. Lindsay Dowd.
Hey, Minda. This
Hello.
has been just such a joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your story. So I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and it says you're a senior program manager. First of all, you need a much bigger headline than that, my friend. You've done far too many things, so we need to add
Okay.
author and all the other things. But what are you doing outside of speaking? Because obviously, I know you did a TED Talk or TEDx. So what else are you up to?
Yeah, so I work full time at a large global insurer. I've been at this company for a number of years. I manage people programs for the finance organization. So that's like my day job. I work remotely here from Arizona. But I also am excited about the launch of my book. I've been sharing my story far and wide. I've been visiting schools. I've been going to conferences. By the way, librarians are like some of the coolest people in the world. Because I feel like, you know, books can really change lives, right? Like if you can see yourself in a book or you can be inspired by what you read, it really can help to make an impact. And outside of that, I'm still advocating for immunizations and the importance of ending polio. I spoke at the Gates Foundation a few months back, and I'm pretty locked in on some of their advocacy efforts. And I'm a mom and an athlete. I have a daughter, she's 9. Like Ron mentioned, she's a little athlete, and it's been really fun to sort of like witness her own athletic journey. And I'm just so grateful that she's able to discover sports at such a young age. And yeah, I'm still a triathlete. I've been a triathlete for 16 years. This is actually the first time that I don't have a race on my calendar. I'm just sort of enjoying the lull right now until I figure out what that next thing is.
Well, I think triathlete is a lot like Olympian. Like you can't undo that title. You are forever a triathlete. So that is yours. And you need to zhuzh your LinkedIn. I did request to connect. So I'll be inviting you onto my podcast. So
oh, super cool. I'm excited. Thanks. I could use all the advice. I need to do better on the LinkedIn.
You're awesome.
Scott Raven in Atlanta. You're up with Minda.
Hello, Minda.
Hi.
Obviously, I could echo everything everybody's already said. I'm just going to say, as someone who's run marathons in his life and has no desire to have his head kicked in the water, that's good enough for me in terms of you got me there with triathlon. I'll put it that way.
Very
What I
nice.
wanted to focus on with my question is there's a difference between being resilient and being persistently resilient. And I wanted to go to the time period between your Konas of the one that you were pulled off the course to the one that you ultimately completed. And I wanted to understand what was it that allowed you to continue to be resilient over a long period of time, particularly with any fears, doubts, anxieties that you may have had given the last experience?
All right, that's a good question. I think it's about like understanding the purpose. Like I was so devastated coming out of 2012. I didn't want that to happen again. And when I think about that purpose, about just like not regretting, not trying again, I felt like that really consumed me, because I was like, I'm going to do everything in my power to get it done. And I made a lot of changes in order to not only shift my mindset, but how I prepared was different. And then having that, like, I guess, unrelenting perseverance on race day really helped me to put everything that I had done in practice, like in a race and being able to get to that finish line. And I think when you have a goal, it like you have to have some emotion behind it. Like, and for me, there was a lot of emotion behind it, because when you have emotion behind a goal, like you are going to do the work to get it done, and you will not like have excuses for yourself. And I think that was really the key in motivating me to really do everything possible to get it done. And like some of the things that I did differently, like, you know, like triathlon is like a singular sport, right? But I really had to enroll a lot of others in helping me become as prepared as possible for that race, right? So like I got additional coaches. Like I knew that swimming is like, oh, so difficult for me. And I got really anxious in the water. So I worked with a separate swimming coach. I had physical therapy, so because everything's upper body, and making sure that I got work done. It was almost like I was a professional athlete, but not a professional athlete, because I still had a job. But just trying to bring in the right people to help me close the gap or become better in whatever I was trying to do. But the really key that really changed for me was having that self-belief. And I can't underestimate the power of self-belief, right? Like when you're up against history, like you don't have a model to go from, right? Like I had sought mentorship from other male athletes that had finished the course. And I actually had an article that I read that year, and it really changed me. And it was written by like this triathlete. His name is Chris McCormick. He talked about like the story of the Wimbledon finals in 1987. Like it was Pat Cash. He was like, it was like this true David and Goliath story. Like Yvonne Lendl, I don't know if this is too late. It was 1987. He was one of the best players at the time, but he was favored to beat Cash. But then Cash beat him. He walked right through him to win the title. And then when he was asked afterwards, like they asked him how he did it, he said, most people think you have to see it to believe it, but I think you have to believe it before you see it. And when I read those words, like it really dawned on me that like I was literally the one holding myself back. And so I declared in writing that I'm going to show off my fear. I wrote this email to my closest friends and family members, basically saying that I truly believed that I could do it. And that attitude I carried all the way through race day. Like the race day was filled with challenges, right? Like, you know, I was up against these time limits, like on the bike segment, like, you know, I get an upset stomach, like I'm like burning up in the sun, like I'm all alone cranking through a series of lava beds. Like I realized, oh my gosh, like I have 90 minutes to go and I only have 18 miles. I really had to shift my thinking and realize like they're gonna have to peel me off this horse because I will do everything to get it done. Like I really wanted it so bad. And like I remember like cranking through those final like hills, and I made it into transition. I heard on the loudspeaker, like it was 5:27 p.m. and I only made that cutoff time by 3 minutes. And I really believe that it was that change in my preparation. It was like that self-belief and this like undying purpose that like I was going to do everything I could to get it done. And then by the time I got onto the run, I knew I was going to make it to the finish line.
It's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Amy in San Francisco.
Amy.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much. I was curious if after having attempted the Ironman and all that you've been through in terms of finishing it and your life, just everything else in your life, I wonder if your definition of failure has evolved. In particular, because failure is a label that we put on things. And I'm wondering if there's fewer things that you put that label on, or if you changed how you use that label. Just how you think about failure now, just when you're talking to your kids, just.
Yeah.
I love that question.
I always say failure is part of being successful. My daughter is a swimmer, and I love the fact that she has all these opportunities to fail, right? Like she goes to a swim meet and she's like entered in like, I don't know, 7 events, right? So like she could have a good race, a not so great race, something could happen. But I love the fact that she gets all those opportunities to try out, you know, like what she's been doing in training and make adjustments and be competitive. And I really think that, and I try to stress this with her too, like even when she like doesn't get the time that she wants, like I say, oh, like I love to see you swim, and like think about all the hard work that you put in, like you have another opportunity. But had she not experienced like adversity or so-called failure, like it wouldn't mean as much when she does like win a race. Like for example, she did an IM maybe like, I don't know, like 2 years ago or something. And like she like jumps into the water, like she's doing all right. And then she ends up getting second in her heat, right? And then she like comes out of the pool and she's crying. And I was like, why are you crying? You got second. Like you did a great job. And she's like, oh, my goggles fell off. And I was like, I am so proud of you. Like you kept going. Like you could have just like, I don't know, called it and like just got out of the pool, but you didn't. And I tell her, or I try to tell her, like, hey, this is just part of the process. And I'm hopeful that, you know, by experiencing these like setbacks or like failure may not mean like as a negative to her. Like if anything, maybe I could think of it as like a learning opportunity, if that makes sense.
It does. Great answer. Yarrow in Florida.
Thank you, Scott. Hello, Minda. This has been wonderful time with you. Thank you for being here and sharing your incredible story and your daughter's up and coming story. It just tickles me that she is following in the footsteps that you've laid for her. So props, Mom. I have 2 young girls, and inspiring them to the best of my ability to do better than I have done is part of my mission as a mom. And I'm sure as you're nodding that you feel that too.
Yes.
The challenges you've overcome, that hopefully they won't have to do that. But mentioning your book, which is on my Amazon list now, made me think in our intro, and Scott, when we first started, mentioned Mace Curran, who was the second female Thunderbird pilot. And she too has written a couple children's books about just being a woman in a underrepresented field, and from the viewpoint of a young girl and chasing dreams that you have, regardless of what that looks like. And so if you're not familiar and you think your daughter would be interested, I would like to get those books for your daughter to just share this message broader.
Oh, very cool. Yes, I would love that. Or
Awesome.
send me tell me their titles. I'd love to get them.
Yes, definitely. I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn after this and make that happen. But thank you for this and everything that you have shared and continue to do.
Thank you.
Melissa Glick in Colorado. You're up.
Hi. Oh, I'm so happy there was time. Oh my God. I felt like I wanted to cry like 3 times during your stories. I felt them deeply. So one of the reasons why I love Outliers so much is because my whole life, when I was younger and even now, I just felt different. And I used to call myself the black sheep because I just never quite fit in. And then I changed it to unicorn because I was like, unicorns in the tech world are valued at $1 billion. Like, I'm a unicorn. And so that's why I love Outlier, because I'm like, these are my people. And I love hearing stories like yours where your differences make you so unique and so special and have such an impact. And I'm in Scottsdale for 6 months out of the year. I would love to take you out for coffee sometime.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Very cool.
I know where the AIG
Yeah, hit me up.
office is. I drive by it.
Okay.
So I'll come to you, make it super convenient, but I would just love to hang out. I just would
Awesome. Yeah.
love to be in your presence. So if I can get your contact information from Scott.
Cool. Let's do it.
Okay. Awesome. I'm
Fellow
excited.
Scottsdale.
I love it. I love it. Actually, Minda, I've got some questions for you.
Yes. Question.
I'd love to know, you're a mentor to so many people. So many people look up to you. Who are some of the people that you look up to? Who are some of your mentors?
That's a good question. I really look up to my boss at AIG. She's a phenomenal leader. And the organization is going through a lot of change. And like, I'm such a planner, but there's a lot of ambiguity that's happening. And she's really teaching me to really be able to sit in it comfortably, or as comfortable as possible. And so she's one of my mentors in the sense where I'm growing and learning from her, working alongside her. And then I would say my sister, she and I are exactly the same age. I'm adopted. She's not. She has blonde hair. She's beautiful. She has 4 kids, and she is an entrepreneur running her own business. And she's lived all over the world, and we are very close. And I talk to her all the time. But I really look up to her because she is such a strong woman, and she is a wonderful mother. And she really has helped me in trying to balance, what I'm trying to do. And because she's doing it herself ×4, right? So those are 2 people that I looked up to.
Love it. Another thing I was thinking as you were talking, because you had said that you think of yourself as an introvert, and if I had to classify myself, I would classify myself also as more of an introvert than an extrovert. Yet you are taking huge stages and you're on TV shows and you're doing all of this stuff that has got to be super uncomfortable for you at times. How do you push through? Is it because your message, your message is so powerful that that's what drives you to do things that are uncomfortable?
Yeah, I would say that. But I'm also trying to grow myself as a person. And I think like when I'm on a stage or like on TV, like those can be very uncomfortable, but it's allowed me to grow so much in my own confidence and just in my own like ability to share my story. Like I'm so grateful for like the opportunities to be able to share my story, and I think to myself like this must be part of my purpose, because while I'm uncomfortable, I'm putting myself on these stages because I know that I can make an impact.
How do you, what's your relationship with the word can't? Because I think you're not somebody who I would think ever thinks, well, I can't do this. And I'm just curious, like when you hear that from other people, how does that sit with you? How do you think about that word?
I feel like can't can be like an excuse, right? Because people don't want to take on whatever it takes to take on that goal, right? And yeah, can't is a label. I feel like if like I don't know, losing weight, it's very difficult for me to lose weight because I have a disability and I can't like burn the same amount of calories. But if I were to say I can't lose weight, that's ridiculous. Like I need to like come up with my own strategies on how to do it. And can't is just like, hey, like an out, like I don't have to do it because I can't. No, like it's choice. Life is a choice. Like if you want something, you figure out a way to get it done. Like the title of my book, right? You just figure it out. And it's easier said than done, right? But a lot of it is about doing the work, and it sucks sometimes, but it's also the process. And you become better when you go after goals that may seem difficult or hard to achieve.
Yeah, we have a saying that in the Outlier Project that anybody can be ordinary, but we all have the power to choose to be extraordinary. And I think the
Yes.
choose is the key word is, and you just hit it. It's, we have a choice. Like it's up to us,
Yes.
how our life is going to turn out.
100%.
I'm curious, what was the ESPYs like?
It was awesome.
Tell us about like just that whole that's like that's like being invited to go to the Oscars. That's huge.
Yeah, it was super fun. My husband and I went. It was in LA. Like I'm not big and flashy, but like they had an SUV pick us up with like the ESPYs like sticker on it. So we're like on the highway, ESPY award nominee. And like the hotel was like decked out like ESPYs. We got invited to a few parties, and that year was like I'm a big Washington State like sports fan, right? And that was the year the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. I was so excited to meet them. And so that was really cool to meet them at a party. But I don't even know how to describe it. It was like completely out of my element. I just was like, wow, this is so amazing. And honestly, it was really neat to be able to meet other athletes who are amazing in their own right, and to be even recognized among like these professional athletes was just like a dream in a way, right? And yeah, I don't know, super amazing, out of this world.
I just flew back from California and was watching some Olympic coverage. And what I thought was really cool is how much coverage they're giving to the Paralympics and those athletes. It was really almost like a 50-50 mix in terms of highlighting these absolutely tremendous athletes. And I thought, boy, the progress that's been made there is incredible. Any thoughts on the upcoming Olympics? And I know, I guess Paris is hosting both, which it sounded like is unusual. Maybe it's typically not in the host city for the Olympics, but I guess this year it is.
So the host city hosts the Paralympics a month after the Olympics. So for
Gotcha.
example, my friends are on the Paralympic triathlon team, right? They are competing like Labor Day weekend in September. And it's really exciting to see that even USOC like rebranded, they renamed their organization like US Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And I think that like cohesion with like able-bodied athletes and disabled athletes only furthers to acknowledge and recognize the power and the athleticism of these athletes with and without disabilities. So I am so excited. I have a few friends who are competing, and I just got Peacock, so I'm able to like they're showing every sport, and there is a Paralympic athlete on my daughter's swim team. She's 13, and she made it to the Paralympics, and it was so cool to be able to watch her swim and know that, like, you know, Paralympians are discovered and developed like in, you know, all across the nation, including Scottsdale, Arizona. So I'm excited to cheer her on, even though like she didn't make it to the Paralympics, but the fact that she even made it to the trials is super cool.
Unbelievable. Kimberly Arnold.
Hi, Minda. This has been so incredibly inspiring hearing your story. Thank you so much for everything it took just to keep going. I wanted to ask if you were connected. So somebody just mentioned in the chat, Ezra Fresh, who's been very active in an amazing athlete himself. I actually worked with his father, Clayton, who runs something called Angel City Sports, which is all sort of disabled people in sporting activities. And so I'm wondering if you're connected with them at all. And if not, I would love to connect you.
I am not connected with them, but I've heard of Angel City Sports. Very cool. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. Okay. So I will also send you a note through LinkedIn to connect you with Clayton, who's the CEO there.
Wow. Super cool. Yeah.
Very cool. And I think our cleanup hitter today, he's batting twice, so we batted around here in this. So Paul is got one more question for you. He couldn't resist.
Yeah, there was so much to share. I mean, there were kind of like rooting for you in the chat. Are you considered a Paralympian? Like, have you ever done the Paralympic Games? I think
no, I haven't. The Paralympians are basically professional athletes. Like that's what they do full time. It's very competitive. The triathlon is a sprint distance triathlon, and I'm not a sprinter by any means, but I can outlast somebody on the course. That's my strong suit is endurance. So no, I'm not considered a Paralympian, but I still think it's cool that I completed the Ironman World Championship.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not sure if you know what athlete. Her name is Tatiana McFadden.
Yes,
and
she's amazing.
She's like one of like my favorites. Like I love the Paralympic Games are like my favorite sporting event to watch. It just reminds me like I have no excuse to just continue to elevate every single day. So this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I can't wait to chat and connect on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yes, Tatiana is a force in the sport. She is the reason why there was a disabled category at the SV Awards. So she has been a wonderful advocate for disabled athletes, and she has been to multiple Paralympics. So I really look up to her in more ways than one.
You're a legend in your own right.
This hour absolutely flew by. Minda, you made our day. I think everybody's excited to go buy the book. And I would say go buy a bunch of copies and get them out to as many people as possible. And definitely make sure that you write a review, because reviews mean an awful lot to authors. How is the book tour? How's it been?
It's been amazing. I've been so grateful. My publisher has been amazing, putting me in front of so many great and different audiences. And it's really it really warms my heart that people are getting so much out of the book. You know, when you write something, you're not sure how it's going to land. And it really proves that it was the right thing to do. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share my story to a wider audience.
And they had you on
Love
the
it.
morning show, right?
Yeah, I was on CBS Morning, national television. That was super cool. Have a look at it. It's on my LinkedIn.
I
And,
love it.
yeah.
I love it. Minda, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to support the heck out of you because you are an absolutely amazing human being.
Thank you.
And
Thanks for having
it's
me.
just been an honor to share an hour with you. So, Ron, I appreciate that introduction that you made all those years ago. And I remember the first conversation I had with Minda. And, you know, it was exciting when the book came out to have her, you know, come in and spend some time with us today. So, Ron, thank you. And Minda, thank you so
Ron.
much.
Thank
Hope
you.
everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.